Hi,
Hi.
Marc and Landon here with Akiyama Music, and today we're talking about the new Mac Studio, because I'm kind of considering one, and we're going to look at whether it's a good option for audio, especially for a music studio, a film scoring studio. Is it a good time to upgrade? I don't know. Landon's already upgraded, as you can see.
This is the M1 Max 14-inch MacBook Pro. Just as a baseline, these specs are, this is a 10-core CPU, a 32-core GPU with the 64 gigabytes of memory and 2 terabytes of storage. We're kind of going to use this as a baseline to talk about the capabilities of the M1 Ultra and the M1 Max in the Mac Studio. So first of all, what is really interesting about the Mac Studio to you?
Right now, I'm using a 2015 5K Retina display, so the 27-inch, the one right before they went to the iMac Pro, and now it looks like they discontinued the iMac Pro.
And also they discontinued the 27-inch iMac.
Yeah, so those are all gone. But don't worry, because we got a new monitor.
And the same price as an iMac.
Yeah, so Apple's got you covered.
So let's get into that M1 Ultra chip. So that, as a base model for the M1 Ultra, you get 20-core CPU, 48-core GPU, and 32-core neural engine. So that basically means with this M1 Max 10-core CPU, you're basically double the performance in CPU. Now, when you're talking CPU, that does affect your audio engineering and all your DAWs because you're running a whole bunch of information through your DAW and you need the CPU to be able to keep up with that. Really, with 48-core GPU, what we're looking at is 48 cores of GPU. That's good, but for audio purposes, you don't really need a lot of GPU and a really intensive GPU. And also what we're seeing with these M1 chips is that the GPUs are good to an extent. Once you start getting up into like the 64-core GPU, which is $1,000 extra for the M1 Ultra, you really start to see kind of diminishing returns. And you're better off saving that $1,000 for storage or for upgrading your RAM and sticking with the 48 core.
The M1 Ultra 48 core would be the one I would look at, especially for audio, because you're getting the newer chip, the combined M1 Max chip, the fused together with the cool. So that's cool. You're getting the better performance, which is great. I don't think you really want to settle in audio, especially because we hang on to our computers. It takes a lot when you upgrade a whole new system, making sure everything is compatible, all your plugins, all your sample libraries usually aren't the issue.
That's CPU intensive, using all those plugins.
So that's another reason to, if you can, try to stick to at least the base model Ultra. If you go up to the next model of the Ultra, like Landon said, a little bit of boost, but it's not going to be as noticeable for what we kind of do.
Yeah, that boost is just for the graphics.
Yeah, Logic will look prettier.
So that's the kind of the model that Marc is looking at, the M1 Ultra. There is, if you wanted to take a step down, he could look at the M1 Max with a 10-core CPU and 32-core GPU, which would basically kind of be like putting this laptop into a different form factor, which works, but only benefit I see by doing that is the amount of peripherals that you can put in. Basically, for the peripherals, for the ports that you get with the Mac Studio, with the M1 Max, you get 2 USB-C ports in the front and then the SD card slot. And then on the back, you get 4 Thunderbolt ports, 2 USB-A, 1 HDMI, and 1 10 gigabit Ethernet port and 1 3.5mm headphone jack. But if you upgrade to the M1 Ultra, those ports in the front turn into 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports with that SD card slot.
The little SD card on the side for us is not really helpful. All our cameras use XD or XQD cards.
Or CF Express.
Yeah. It would have been nice to get a bigger card slot for there, especially if it's a Studio Pro machine. Oh well. Same thing with the headphone port. I know most of us connect our interfaces and stuff like that in other converters, and they already have the 1/4-inch headphone jack, or we have another system to handle talkback and listening. But if it's a studio machine, it would be nice to include like a 1/4-inch headphone. But again, the headphone amp might not be that great. So
okay, and now so let's talk about the memory, the RAM.
So the RAM, I'd probably my computer right now, I upgraded it myself to the 64 gigabytes of RAM, but the M1 chips, remember mine's still an Intel one, so the M1 chips, if I made the jump, they act more like 128 gigabytes of RAM if you get the 64. So they're more efficient because it's a unified chip and everything. Just to save money, I'd probably stick to 64 gigabytes because most of my projects, I don't usually max out my track number or number of instruments. So I really don't hit the top of mine right now. So I'm sure if I got an M1 Ultra 1, the 64 would still be plenty.
Yeah, and even so, you are getting a spec bump with the new RAM because it is a generation leap of RAM. Basically with this M1 Max, I have LPDDR5, and what we put in Marc's iMac is DDR4. Yeah, and then that means that you can save on what you would spend on the RAM and put it towards upgrading your storage.
Yeah, I would upgrade the storage to at least 2 terabytes. Yeah, I mean, it goes up to 8 terabytes, that's the size of my biggest sample library external hard drive. But Landon, you also have an 8 terabyte one, don't you?
Yeah, I have an 8 terabyte OWC Thunderblade, which is very fast, and it's all SSDs, and that's connected with Thunderbolt 3 technology.
Yeah. But you could, if you got extra cash, you could upgrade the internal one to 8 terabytes and potentially store your sample libraries on there, and then it's all running off of one machine. But I don't know, this might just be the way that I grew up doing it. I still feel like it's better to keep your sample libraries, offload them. Not sure how the M1 functions with external hard drives. If it slows it down because it's external, and it would be better to be internal.
I think you want them to get the fastest connection that you can, so the fastest external media storage that you can. But with that said, anything internal is always going to be faster because these SSDs are very efficient, and Apple didn't skimp on putting on the quality of SSDs that they're putting in the Mac Studio. So you are going to see a little bit more of a faster throughput with internal storage. But if you grew up doing, if you grew up like Marc doing external storage and that's your workflow, you should be fine. I wouldn't worry about it.
So, first impressions of the Mac Studio, it seemed really awesome. As always, Apple says it's geared toward professionals in the industry and everything, but it's really still like consumer based to the widest market, obviously, because they want to make money. So as I mentioned, some of the things that I think might be an issue, and I'm not sure if it's better to wait to see what the Mac Pro upgrade to M1, wait to see what that looks like, because there's a lot of speculation that that one's going to come out by the end of the year also, especially because Apple teased it at the very end. They're like, we have one more computer to upgrade and it's coming, but that's for another day. One nice thing though, I do appreciate that with this, you now have the option to subscribe to Apple Care on a yearly subscription. I think it's like $64 a year, and you can keep it going past the 3 years, which is great because I keep my computers very long. So the other thing, I heard Boot Camp does not work on M1 at all anymore, but supposedly Parallels does. And one of my endeavors for audio right now was to get into DSD recording instead of PCM recording. And there's only one system that does that, and it's PureMix, which is a DAW program. But the problem with that would be PureMix is only a Windows program, so I'd have no problem running it on my current computer. However, if I upgrade, I have to find a workaround for how I'd be able to run that software. And right now, I have no idea if Parallels would even run a software like that. I might have to get a Windows computer.
Gross, dude.
I know, right? So right now, Mac Studio hype is real. We all get blown away by like, oh, double the CPU, oh, better performance. But you got to take a step back because, all right, a new computer, it's expected. It should perform better. Mm-hmm. There's no reason it shouldn't. But to me, it feels like this is another in-between step for Apple. Be like, here you guys, we know you want something new, so here it is. We're still not innovating or redesigning even the shell of it that much. I don't think this is the redesign that we were promised yet.
Yeah, it seems like in some ways they're just trying to make that 2-year mark that they promised on the transition to M1.
I feel like we're always waiting though. I kind of want to wait to see what the Mac Pro is going to look like, the redesigned Mac Pro. Okay, we're going to wrap this up with a few thoughts on the Studio display that launched.
So it's a 27-inch LCD P3 display. It's only 1001 contrast, so you are going to see a bit of glowing blacks. They're not going to be quite as deep, rich blacks as you get in the M1 MacBook Pros. You're basically getting an iMac 5K panel in a redesigned standalone display. So,
Oops.
it's 5K, it's 600 nits. 600 nits is good enough for indoor space, indoor working, and it has one Thunderbolt port and I think 3 USB-C ports.
Which that one Thunderbolt's going to be taken up to connect it to the Ultra, so that's gone.
Yeah, and so it's a good display for, it's competitive in the market of 5K external displays, but as far as Apple goes, we were expecting a little bit something more premium because there's a few quirks. The first quirk I mentioned is the contrast ratio, 1000 to 1. I don't want to have glowing blacks on my screen. Also, the nano glass it's nice. That's coming from the Pro Display XDR, but if you're doing any kind of photo editing or you need a true display that's P3, you're going to get some noise, but it's still going to be better than general matte screens. And then also, it's $400 for the height adjustable stand.
Soup. Ah, that hurt my bank.
Soup. Ah, like, why are they making us pay extra for that kind of functionality? That should be something that's standard. Like, just totally make it standard.
I will say, if I do get the display, though, I'm probably going to pay for the height adjustable thing.
Because you have to.
I need a height adjustable one.
Yeah.
Because the iMac right now sits so low, most of my interfaces I can't keep on the desk with me because they run into it, especially if I tilt it. I hit the knobs and everything. Mm-hmm. So you kind of need a height adjustable one just to get it out of the way of all the other audio stuff you have.
Also, there's another weird quirk. The power cable isn't removable from the back of the display.
Oh, that is weird.
And you have to go through this whole jumping through hoops just to get the power cable unraveled and plugged into your wall. So basically, I think this studio display is geared towards people who just bought a Mac Mini. And they don't care about like the specs or anything. They just need something to look at.
It's pretty.
Yeah, it is pretty. But for somebody who does like photo or video work in addition to audio work, this might not be the display for you, and you might just want to wait until they come out with a cheaper model of the Pro Display, which, I don't know, rumors are saying that there's going to be something like that that comes out with the Mac Pro.
The rumor is that the new one is the one that we thought we were going to get, which was the mini LED, the junior version of the Pro XDR.
Yeah, so the display is a thumbs down for me.
That's another reason why it just feels like an in-between step for Apple. They're like, here you go, you've been wanting a display after we took away the other one, so this one should be good enough for you for now.
All right, final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Mac Studio is pretty cool. It's very tempting. I kind of want to hold off to see what the Mac Pro offers, especially because the display with this one is just lackluster.
Right.
But when you were talking about the power cable, that reminded me of the other thing. They changed, again, the shape of the power cord to the actual computer, to the actual Mac Studio. Yeah. It now looks like a Mickey Mouse shaped thing. Like literally Mickey Mouse. It's a proprietary shape again, so you can only use their power cords. Granted, they give you a nice braided power cable, but I use a power isolator, and I have the like transparent audio cables, the power cables running for most of my equipment just to make sure that no electricity hum carries through. It's debatable whether or not there's a huge difference, but with a Pro machine, you at least want to have the option to use your better quality studio cables.
So I guess it's a wait and see for Mark whether he's going to get the Mac Studio.
Yeah, let me know what you guys think.
Yeah, and also let us know, have you dipped your toes into the M1s? Are you getting a Mac Studio? I'd like to see what you guys are doing, and let us know what your setup is currently. Yeah, let us know, especially like if you have maxed out your M1 system for audio production, like where are you starting to see the bottleneck, where are you starting to see like it slow down, what kind of tasks. All right, I think that's about it for today. Thanks again, everybody. See you in the next one. Bye.